This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of the Men in Early Childhood podcast series in partnership between the Voice of Early Childhood and Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs. My name is Claudio, and I'm your host for today, and I'm the Head of Diversity and Inclusion here at Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs. Our organization aims to support the mental well-being and professional development of male educators in early childhood education, mainly due to the underrepresentation that they face in the sector and the unique struggles and challenges that they're currently facing. And we've made it our mission to encourage more boys and more men to consider a career in early childhood education, just because that might not be the first choice of career when they come out of school, for example, or again, due to the stigma and misconceptions and stereotypes around the industry, they might not directly opt for such a career. So we are there to bridge the gap between those demographics and the industry itself. And we wouldn't be able to do that without our really supportive network of seasoned educators. And speaking of seasoned educators, today I'm joined by the wonderful Simon Airy. Hi, Simon. How are you?
Morning, Claudia. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today. And today's episode is going to be the emotional toll that gender stereotypes play on male educators. And I'm really excited to have Simon here with me today because he's got plenty of experience in the sector. He's worked in the early childhood education industry for over 25 years, and he's got experience in a broad range of settings as well. And I'm really excited to engage in a nice conversation with him. Simon, I think it would be great to learn a little bit more about your journey and how you got into early childhood education and to where you are today.
The journey that I've taken, it started off really in Key Stage 1. I was doing teaching in Year 1 and Year 2 for quite a significant period of time. And then it got to a point where my head teacher asked me to move to reception, which I was hesitant initially of doing. But I found that when I moved to early years, I absolutely loved it. I loved working with the younger children. And it sort of carried on from there that I took time to sort of research and immerse myself in the whole early years experience. And it's almost its own little bubble, as it were, with its own way of doing things. It's quite a complex and very rewarding sort of area to work in. And I find now that in my role as supply teacher, I've got a lot more time to sort of immerse myself in those particular issues, those interests, and I've got more time to sort of think about things and sort of put things into practice. So it's been a very interesting experience for me so far, but it's really well embedded now.
Right. Okay. And how did you get started working in early childhood education? What made you choose this wonderful career path?
I think back to when I was younger, and I always wanted to go into teaching, and I wasn't sure which age group to go into, but when I was younger, I always remember playing teachers with my toys and my siblings at home, which was great. And I took a lot of inspiration from teachers that I had when I was younger. And I remember one particular teacher, his name was Mr. Turner, and Mr. Turner was my Year 3 teacher. It would be equivalent to Year 3 now. And I remember that this teacher had made the classroom environment was incredible. The way he did things was incredible. But I remember most that this particular teacher just gave time, because I struggled a lot at school with a lot of things, particularly there were some academic things that I struggled with, but there's also other things, sort of more personal things that I struggled with. And I realize now that those struggles that I had when I was younger more recently they've come to the fore, and particularly they revolve around neurodivergency and feeling different and feeling, I don't know, feeling a little bit sort of not knowing what to do. So almost it's now that if I was speaking to the younger version of myself, there's a lot more stuff that I would give to that person when I was younger, because if I'd done a lot of those things now that I do with children that I teach, then I think my childhood, my way of doing things may have been more accepted.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that story with us, actually. And that's, I think, a really powerful reminder for us educators. And sometimes I even forget about that the impact that we bring into our children's lives and the memories that we are building with them, that they will bring with them, across throughout their life, their entire life. I still have very vivid memories of my early years. Since I started nursery at the age of 3, I remember all of my teachers' names, some of my key friends' names as well, things that happened in the classroom. I'm still in touch with 2 of my friends as well from nursery, so we're pretty much friends. They came to visit me a couple of years ago in London. So it's such a powerful reminder of the experiences that we are building as educators in the classroom. And obviously, yeah, yourself, throughout your 25 years, you probably have seen a lot, and you must have experienced quite a lot as an educator, which really, really makes me wonder one thing. In terms of you yourself being a male educator in early childhood education, how has your extensive experience shaped your perspective on the challenges you've experienced?
I think the lived experience that I've had, being male, I self-identify as neurodivergent, and also being a part of the LGBTQIA plus community as well. I think all of those things, when you've had the lived experience, it forms the sort of the backstory of what you do and why you do it. Because I can see now that children coming into settings who are displaying which I think are traits of neurodiversity, I find that I feel more sort of equipped to deal with it or to give support when it's needed. And particularly with early years, I think there's a wide range of things that happen in terms of if you're working in that particular area, you're the child's first adult out, maybe the child's first adult out of their family. So you're the person responsible for those first sort of building blocks, those first steps into education, whether it's in a in a day nursery, if it's an afternoon club, if it's a school-based nursery. I think if I think back to my school education, I mean, I didn't encounter a male educator until year 3. I didn't encounter any male educators in early years or Key Stage 1. It wasn't until Key Stage 2 that I encountered a male teacher, and I thought it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant, this person. It made a real impact on me. And I think there's something missing there. I think there's a big gap there in terms of the number of male educators within early years. I know that there's that significant statistic that there's between 2 and 3% of early years professionals, whether it's a nursery nurse, whether it's a midday supervisor, or any adult working in early years, it's really low. And you hear sometimes of things that people are doing that they want to address that, but you don't really see. It's hard to assess the impact of that because it's all very well talking about it, but when you get down to like what people are doing about it, I know that you are very significant in terms of what you're doing about it, in terms of your platform and the way that you talk about it and the way that you celebrate achievements and everything that go along with it. I think there's a lot there that still needs to be done.
I agree with you. And I find very interesting the fact that you said that you haven't encountered a male educator until year 3. And do you think that played a role in the way you've seen gender roles in society at some point throughout your life? Obviously, I know you're quite passionate about inclusivity at present, but do you ever feel that had a negative impact on your thoughts around gender roles in society throughout your life?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, there was a very specific type of gender stereotype. For example, my dad. I never saw my dad until he got home from work. He always left very early in the morning, got home late in the evening, and he was the main breadwinner of the family. And then in terms of like other males, yeah, I very rarely encountered any males at all until that particular teacher in my early sort of primary education. And actually, the most males that I saw teacher-wise would probably when I got to we called it upper school. So when I went to school, we had primary school, we had middle school, and we had upper school. So it's when I got to upper school, that's where you saw a lot more men. But then the men that were in the upper school would teach traditional, I'd call it male subjects, so that you'd always see the male teachers in, say, PE, you'd always see them in technology, you'd always see them in maths, for example. The amount of males I saw in other subjects was limited.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I can resonate a lot with your experience. Myself as well. I'm originally from Italy, and I would say that probably the situation there when it comes to gender norms is not any better than the UK. So I've always worked in a family setting where my mum was at home, stay-at-home mum, and she did all the house cleaning and house cooking, and my dad was always outside working, leaving early in the morning, coming back late at night. And I think that, that played a huge role in my own conception of gender roles in society, to the point that when I moved to the UK, and I'm going to be honest with you here, I got a job in early childhood education just by pure coincidence and chance. I never planned to be a teacher myself. I never planned to be an educator, let alone working in early childhood education with under fives. I purely saw that as a feminine role myself. And I remember being hosted at a friend of mine's house for 2 weeks when I moved to London. And his flatmate was a room leader in the nursery that I ended up working at initially. So he approached me, noticed that I was giving out CVs here and there, and said to me, "Why don't you come and work in our nursery?" And I said to him, "Look, I don't have any experience whatsoever in early childhood. And plus, I didn't even feel I would fit in the role." But he was being really reassuring about it. And obviously, himself, he was a male. So that was a sort of like an inspiration for me to go and try, at least go to the interview and get to know the nursery manager. And yeah, little did I know that I would eventually fall in love with the industry. So I think, these early experiences that we have as children, young people, they really, really play a huge role in the way we shape ourselves as adults, moving, throughout the years. And there's something that I've really, really liked in the article that you've shared with me. And thank you very much for putting together such a great article, Simon. You were talking about the expectations of masculinity in early childhood education. And it really lit so many areas of my brain when I was reading that. And mainly, I have a question for you with regards to that specific aspect. How do you think this toxic masculinity what sort of impacts it has on the learning environment of children in our classrooms?
Hello everyone, I'm here with an exciting announcement. The Voice of Early Childhood Conference is back again, and it will be held on 8th of February 2025. I'm really excited to share with you all the fantastic speakers and their talks. So first up, we have Matt Baller presenting the morning keynote on proactively supporting children's mental health. Then we have 3 workshops for you to choose from out of a choice of 9 different topics and a variety of speakers. So on the leadership strand, we have Yinka Ognusi, cultivating a critical approach, targeting social justice and anti-racism. We also have Claudia Cicera and Stuart Cloak, recruiting a diverse workforce and investing in staff retention. And we have Wendy Ratcliffe, what to expect on your inspection day. And then we have our practice and parents strand. We have Dr. Sue Allingham, speaking on a neuroscientific lens on the learning environment. We also have Stephanie Warrender, early literacy through song drawing. And we have Olivia Corbin-Phillip, using stories to build confidence and improve RSC. We then have our final strand, which is practice focused. From Charmaine Leach, we've got Inclusive Beginnings, Nurturing Every Child with SEND. We have Jan Dubil, Creating Your Own Curriculum. And we have Dr. Mona Saka, Kayla Halls, and Dr. Sarah Benetti on big questions in the baby room. And then last but not least, we have Ben Kingston Hughes presenting our closing keynote all around the essential neuroscience of humour and laughter. So it's a packed agenda with lots of talks to choose from. So make sure that you grab your tickets. The link with full conference info is in this episode description. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
I think that those sort of societal expectations, or the things that have always been done, I think we shouldn't be afraid to challenge them. We shouldn't be afraid to give a different perspective on things. I mean, I talk about 5 years ago, I would never have said anything like that at all. But now I think building on from that sort of inclusive perspective, that, you know, if you don't see the representation within the environment, then you should say so. You should say that, for example, in the home corner of an early years classroom, if you haven't got things like, you know, books or photos or things that represent males in those particular roles, then you're potentially depriving children of that sort of overt diversity, that sort of overt image that, okay, well, so in some families there may only be a male at home, there may be 2 males at home, child may have 2 dads, for example, and I think it's really important for children to see this, because it gives them a source of identification. They can resonate with it, and it leads on to those conversations. It leads on to, well, if a child's then talking about the fact they may have 2 dads at home, then that needs exploring, that needs talking about, and it gives validation for that child that, okay, well, my family setup may be different to this person's family setup, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we talk about inclusivity as, you know, traditionally we talk about inclusivity as being around, SEND, special educational needs and disabilities, when actually inclusivity encompasses more than that. Incorporates gender, incorporates race, it incorporates other things as well. So I think it's important that within the environment that we're providing for these children, we need to think really critically and carefully about what we're showing the children, and actually, more importantly, what we're showing the adults, the parents and caregivers when they come into our setting. We need to show them that there's that representation there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Simon. Thanks for sharing that. And, you know, I genuinely feel that we've got such a huge power as early childhood educators, that we've got the power to shape the future society and how they will look at the concept of masculinity moving forward. And, I truly believe that the age-old stereotypes around us men not being able to do such a job, to carry out such a role, is because of the way the current parents were brought up as children back in the day. So now today we've got such an opportunity to be able to tackle those gender stereotypes early on in the classroom. So things that you've mentioned as well, for example, not depriving a child of a learning opportunity just because of their gender, or I still see so many occasions where a boy who wants to wear a dress gets denied that opportunity in the role play area. And why are we limiting that child's learning opportunity? All we are doing by doing that is augmenting that toxic masculinity.
I think that within role play, I'll just add another thought in that, in the role play area, you may have particular costumes or particular, dresses or jackets or whatever. And for me, I've moved towards like not having those things anymore. I prefer now having like, different colored cloths, different colored sort of materials that children can use in whichever way they want. Because, for example, if you've got like typically, like an Elsa dress, the character from Frozen, you may have a particular child who always wears the Elsa dress or always wants to go for the Elsa dress every day. And actually that inhibits opportunities for imagination and creativity. Because, if you've got a piece of like, say, red cloth or colored cloth, you can actually turn that into whatever you want. It could be a character from a story. It could be something you've seen at home, and so on. So I think the more open-ended things that you have, the more discussion and the more imagination it will provide for those children.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, and I never looked at it that way in the past. So it's very, very insightful. What are your thoughts about, let's say, occupational clothing? Is that something that you would have in your role play area? So let's say firefighters or police person, so that you could then potentially utilize those to tackle any gender stereotypes. Would you use them, or?
Yeah, I'd have. It's a question of whether you'd have those sort of the ones that are already pre-made, or whether you have sort of the more open-ended stuff and you add to it. So if you've got like, if we're talking police officer, for example, then, you could have, a coloured cloth, like a black coloured cloth for the jacket, and then the children can make the stuff that goes with it, the stuff that goes on the shoulders or the stuff that goes on the arms. Mm-hmm. So then actually they're making it more personalised, and actually you raising that occupational slant to role play. Yeah, I just think, some people will have the pre-made stuff already there, and I think that is good, because you can, generally speaking, the occupational role play stuff isn't particularly aimed at one particular gender, and so it's very open-ended. But I think you need to back it up with, as you say, the discussions that you have around it, so that if, for example, if there's areas that maybe, male, female are less represented in, then it's a good chance to show, for example, that, if a child says they want to be, a doctor, and it gives you the sort of opportunity to affirm to that child, well, actually, you can do this. You can be a doctor. This is what you need to be a doctor. This is how it works. And I think it will give a lot of, in a way, aspirations to that child. So I think there's a lot of power there to use the resources that you have, but it's what the adult adds to it. It's like, I'm just thinking like, you go to the supermarket, and in the supermarket, all the aisles, you've got like your fruit aisle, the vegetable aisle, and whatever. It's when you get to the end, you've got like the special offer. You say you've got 30% off. That's what the adult needs to bring to that child. They need to bring that, that enhancement, that extra bit to it. So it's probably just not enough for that child to dress up. It's what the adult does to enhance that for the child, which is powerful, really powerful.
Absolutely. I think we are probably the most valuable resource for the children, even before, physical resources in the classroom. So I'm totally with you on that, Simon. Thanks for sharing it. There was something else that actually I found really, really insightful from your article. Obviously, when you were talking about the feelings of isolations that male educators experience in the sector, I was very curious to hear a little bit more about your own experience and how you felt during this 25 years plus of your experience working in different settings. Would you like to share more about that?
Yeah, I've worked in settings where I've been the only male in the whole school, and I think to the first time I worked in early years, I was the only male there. I can't think throughout my teaching. I'm just trying to think of an example of where there's been more than one male in early years when I've been in there, and I honestly can't think of one. I cannot think of a setting off the top of my head where there's been another male.
Wow.
Within early years. I mean, I can't think of another early years teacher that's been male that I've worked with. And I can't think of, I could think of males that have worked in early years that have been like a one-to-one or a child maybe with autism.
Okay.
But again, sometimes, it doesn't matter who the person is that's working with with those particular children. They could be male or female. But yeah, interesting that now you said that, I'm just trying to think now of those sort of early years examples, and I actually can't think of another setting that I've worked in where there's been, say, if you've got two reception classes where both of those teachers have been male, and I can't think of one. I can't think of it at all.
Okay, well, quite isolating for you, I assume.
Yeah, I think I wish, sort of on reflection, I'd wish there'd been more there. I wish there'd been more there for, when you start teaching and you go through the sort of the ECT phase, it's almost as if now, I'm just thinking now, what if there had been at that time that sort of support, that sort of support for male educators working in early years. And I suppose it was very isolating because you're working in a female dominated environment. And I think that it's the space should have been there for us to, early years males to have met at that point. We're thinking back in the early 2000s now, and there was nothing there for males at all. There was, as training and everything, there's stuff that all new teachers went on, but it wasn't male specific. And I think now, I'm just sort of thinking now that if that had have been there, it could have led to sort of productive discussions like we're having now. And yeah, there was definitely a gap there, a big gap.
Right. And you've obviously, let's say, survived in the industry for 25 years. What are your secrets? What sort of things have you done to sort of stay resilient in such an isolating industry for yourself and many others out there, including myself?
I've there's been times where it has been tough going. It's been tough going because of workload. I won't lie here. Workload is the biggest cause of mental health struggles. I've been through it more than once, and I think now that it's one of the things that I do a lot of is I'm constant, because the sort of rise of social media and almost my love now for like reading and researching, because of what I'm doing at the moment with supply teaching. It's now I've got time to think more, and without sort of having the pressures of being observed, having everything scrutinized, and I feel I have more time to sort of do what I want to do, and I have more time to sort of hone the strategies a bit more, because there's things that I'm doing now when I'm teaching that I would never have done sort of 20 years ago it's that sort of build towards, the mental well-being of children. When they come into school, you're faced with, particularly in early years, separation anxiety. You're faced with the child may have experienced something before they even got into the school. And I think it's that shift for me. It's when we think about behaviour in particular, we think about behaviour as something we have to manage, but actually now it's something that we support. And I think for me, it's having that mindset now and not judging, because unfortunately there are still people within education who do judge in terms of male teachers. They judge in terms of, if a child has significant need, there's judgment there. I think if you're going in with not judging, you don't have those preconceptions, then, and you're coming more from a curious angle. So, okay, this child is doing this. Okay, right, why might they be doing that, rather than ask them to sort of have time out or whatever. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of doing. But once you've got to that point, I think that's good. And that's probably the biggest success I have in my sort of travels and how I approach teaching now.
Right. No, thanks for sharing that story. And surprisingly, in a way, that really resonates with me as well. I remember exactly right at the beginning of my career in early childhood, I experienced a similar struggle with regards to overload, so work overload. So I remember, for some reason, I suspect it was because of my gender, but I seem to be getting all children with special educational needs, diverse behaviors. And at some point, it really took a toll on my mental health and mental, work-life balance as well, because I was bringing a lot of work home, loads of paperwork we were doing back in the days as well, about it. So it was quite challenging, and because of fear of judgment, I would say, and primarily the toxic masculinity that society puts upon us, I would just prefer not showing my weaknesses and get on with it, but at the same time taking a toll on my health.
I definitely found that, when I had those moments where it was too much, I would rarely display that through the workplace. I'd come home and do it. I'd come home, I think, I've had enough, it's too much. I'd become very insular about it, and I'd very rarely at that point go out and seek support. I'd try and deal with it myself. I think now, when it's happened recently, I had about 2 years ago, I had a period of mental health difficulties, and the contrast between that, what I did then, and what I didn't do, say 10 years ago, couldn't be more different. Because I knew that, okay, I'm not feeling right, it's too much, I need some time. So I phoned the doctor up, and the doctor said, yeah, I'm going to sign you off for 2 weeks. And I thought, right, that's great, I can spend my 2 weeks doing what I need to do. But if I go back sort of 10 years ago, I would never have done that at all, because I don't think mental health was valued as much as it is now. And even now, I think there's still issues now with mental health and how it's taken and how it's supported, but it's better than it was 10 years ago.
Well, thank you very much, Simon, for sharing that. And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why I am a huge advocate for external networks. It is crucial for leaders and managers to provide on-site coaching and on-site, let's say, peer-to-peer support. But equally, I think it's important to provide those educators with external networks and external mentoring and coaching, because educators like myself, yourselves, we might not feel 100% comfortable about sharing specific struggles we are undergoing at work, we're going through and experiencing, like similarly, we might not feel comfortable talking about gender specific struggles that we are facing. So having an external source of support, like a warm network that sometimes can just play as a listening ears, I think it can play a huge role in our mental well-being at work. So thank you, Simon, for joining me today on this podcast episode. And thank you all those who are listening or watching this episode. For those interested in reading Simon's article, they can go to the Voice of Early Childhood's website. And for more episodes and articles in this series, they can also visit the Men in Early Childhood page. So goodbye for now, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye, Simon.
Thank you.